Hello and welcome everyone. I'm your host Bikram, student, science geek, and AI enthusiast. And today I have with me someone I have looked up for a long time neuroscientist, entrepreneur, and educator Dr. Sukant Khurana. Dr. Sukant, thank you so much for joining us today. This is a real honor.
Thank you, Vikram. It's a pleasure to be here. I've seen some of your work that you've been doing, and I have to say, the passion and curiosity remind me why I love mentoring.
That means the world, sir. So let's jump right in. We are talking about AI in drug discovery for infectious diseases, a field that is just exploding right now. From your perspective as both a researcher and entrepreneur, what excites you most about the intersection of AI and infectious disease research?
Well, there is a lot to be excited about.
Hmm.
Traditionally, drug discovery took decade or more, costs billions, and often fails. But with
Right.
AI, we are compressing timelines. We can now model the structure of pathogens, predict which molecules might inhibit them, even simulate how diseases progress inside body. I have personally even worked on some areas of predicting toxicology, right?
Hmm. Right.
Absorption, digestion. In the context of infectious diseases where time is crucial,
Hmm.
AI is giving us ability to anticipate, not just respond. But I'd like to add something more. In
Hmm.
infectious diseases, the problem is that the dollar value is not very high. Unlike Alzheimer's or diabetes, which lasts for rest of the lifetime, or cancer, where there is a very long course of medicine. So the money a pharma company can make is a lot.
Hmm.
So from a purely financial perspective, return on investment, even if infectious diseases are killing more people than some of the chronic diseases, the return on
Right.
investment is not there. There are frequent pandemics. So with AI and the cost of drug discovery being reduced, that will be a game changer in saving humanity from extinction. That
Hmm.
big of a deal.
Right.
So
Sir, I absolutely love that. I've also read about how AI helped screen millions of compounds during the early COVID 19 days. But here's my question. Are we maybe expecting too much from AI? Can it really design new drugs, or are we just overhyping it?
well, there is some overhype. There are valid concerns. AI is a very powerful tool. It's not
Mm-hmm.
magic. AI can design molecules ranging from generative models, the reinforcement learning, transformer-based models,
Mm-hmm.
and but these are hypotheses. These are not final products because we don't know the biology to fully model it. That
Mm-hmm.
said, if you look at other aspects of AI, think of AlphaFold. It's doing sometimes better than network with its flaws. For example, something that might have gotten someone Nobel for Ion Channel,
Mm-hmm.
somebody I actually respect and like deeply, Rod McKinnon, and in fact had a great interaction with him when he came to UT Austin as a guest of one of my favorite, Professor Richard Aldrich.
Mm-hmm.
And we were discussing all things, and Rick obviously poked fun of him, saying that he got a Nobel for wrong structure, which was partly true. So it was
Mm-hmm.
not an open state; it was a closed state. So when you're basically doing structure from extracrystallography, it has its own errors. So think
Mm-hmm.
of how AlphaFold has transformed things.
Right.
And it's not just AlphaFold, Evo2. So, and even if you think of molecular docking MDS, if it is
Mm-hmm.
not just done from the perspective of initial screen and we are looking at it holistically, there is
Mm-hmm.
a whole lot that's going on. Right? So one can actually have enough information, but it's still a model.
Mm-hmm.
AI is helping us do a lot of things, right? For example, in genomic data,
Mm-hmm.
AI is very highly efficient. It's helping find needles in haystacks, right? But we still need
Right.
human judgment at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. So totally agree. I have been myself dabbling in molecular docking, and even though the AI tools are powerful, I think the chemistry is messy and it's quite humbling. Speaking of data, how big of a problem is data quality in this field, especially since a lot of pathogen data from countries in the global south is either missing or underrepresented?
Yeah, that's one of the biggest parts. Your question is sometimes questions can be brighter than answers, and your question is very brilliant because see, I have been professor in few places in India.
Mm-hmm.
I have seen fudging in US also. I've seen bad quality data. But global south, there is desperation to publish things. I will not
Mm-hmm.
name names. That can be left for some other thing because I'll become unnecessarily controversial. I've entered labs in India, all my colleagues, just
Mm-hmm.
opposite door, and seen students create cells on Photoshop. So, I called up to collaborations in some drug institute because of that, where I was like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, no, I don't want the result to be Photoshop. So there is a huge problem. That's one of the biggest blind spots. Also,
Mm-hmm.
models are trained on skewed data set. They are Eurocentric, right? And they're
Mm-hmm.
even within Eurocentric, they are male dominated, rarely inclusive of global pathogen and even pathogen interactions. So, for
Mm-hmm.
example, if you're looking at one of the big problems for India, but absolutely insignificant problem for Europe, is sickle cell anemia, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
think of you were doing that and your population sample was based on European data, and that will be a problem. So, AI models can learn what they are shown, and the
Mm-hmm.
data from global south is either missing or often bad. That's a big challenge. There are solutions also. I mean, there are absolutely brilliant things happening in Africa, in India, in Indonesia. Um, Surprisingly good output is there for the various one day, one genome thing from Government of India, funded things from DBT. So not everything is bad, but again, you need human judgment to see what is good, what is not, right? And you need
Right.
to make sure enough people have done it. We need to be more inclusive. We need to have also open source data sets. People publish without it being open source, right? Especially
Mm-hmm.
diseases like leishmaniasis, chikungunya, resistant TB, which don't get spotlight because they are in global south, but they affect millions of people.
So right, sir. I also feel that neglected tropical diseases like Kala Azar or Chagas barely get any funding, but the burden is quite massive. Do you think AI can help shift that balance?
Absolutely. One of AI's biggest strengths is cost efficiency.
Mm-hmm.
Once trained, a model can screen thousands of molecules virtually, far cheaper than traditional methods. For neglected diseases, AI can be used to repurpose existing drugs, test old compounds in new ways, or identify low-hanging fruit that pharma companies ignored. In one way, it's sort of a brilliant way to level the playing field, so to say.
Right, right. So you also mentioned repurposing. Do you have any success stories or projects where AI helped do that?
Yeah, so there are several. In fact, there are painful ones because
Mm-hmm.
I'll even first mention my own thing. We repurposed quite a few things in COVID early stage. We couldn't test them, and we found that they worked when others tested them. I was going through a lot of trauma, personal tragedies, and made a stupid decision in a startup because I realized with my confrontation with some people
Mm-hmm.
who decide funding in India, not all, there's some incredibly good people also. But there's some problems with some far left element. Doesn't matter. I mean, you have extremist people both on left and right. Some people
Mm-hmm.
who were blocking my funding and the political situation in that. I should not have left the fund and I should have had the courage to move back to US where I had all the connections and everything. I still have more connections in US than India where
Mm-hmm.
I've relocated and I'll be moving back to Western Hemisphere. So we had so many things and we had multiple things on Parkinson's and we put it on hold to start doing PPE, gloves, mask supply, vaccine supply,
Mm-hmm.
and that turned out to be first failure. And then we had another failure. So that's sort of my personal journey. And then we had spectacular success with epilepsy in terms of valuation and then with AI and then with we do some things with study abroad. But we ourselves witnessed a lot of success, which we saw others with. So that's my painful personal story. Coming back to general success of COVID,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if you think of early days of COVID, AI models flagged remdesivir, right?
Right,
Baricitinib as potential candidates long before they were in trials, right? We have used AI
right.
for various agents. We have worked on fungal things, viral things. We worked in epilepsy. In
Mm-hmm.
Parkinson's, we have insane leads and kind of makes us wonder why others haven't tested it. In
Mm,
fact,
right.
we are being slow not because AI is slow, because human intelligence is slow and they're 24 hours in a day. And one
Mm,
has to make sort of, dough, sort of bread and butter. So right now we are making money, raising funding in one AI venture, which is why a lot of things that we have done in Parkinson's are currently sitting in back burner. But we did a lot and we had over 200 things which showed initial promise. Obviously needs to be pursued further. So AI is heaven sent. I mean, it's as close to magic as it gets, but it has its own flaws.
right. So that is quite fascinating. I could not agree more to the point that you mentioned that AI is not perfect, but it can significantly reduce and save us months of work. And let me just nerd out for a moment. I recently read about something called federated learning and how it's being used in healthcare. Could that be a solution for the data sharing problem?
Absolutely, it can. There are financial issues why
Mm-hmm.
pay may not work. Those are big issues. There are conflicts, and not everyone wants open thing. In fact,
Mm-hmm.
I'll take a tangent to saying, in OpenAI, not relevant to AI for drug discovery,
Mm-hmm.
models are usually closed.
Mm-hmm.
DeepSeek shattered that, putting
Right.
out things which were open weight. They were entirely open source. Popular media reported it as entirely open source, but it was open weight, at least saying that we should have open source thing, right? Laying out
Right.
that discussion. Now, let's take it back to AI in drug discovery. Imagine being able to train a model across hospitals in different countries without ever moving the data.
Mm-hmm.
Federated learning allows exactly that. Instead of
Right.
collecting data centrally, it sends the learning algorithm to the data. Right? It's
Mm-hmm.
privacy respecting, it's GDPR compliant. It's being used more and more in sensitive fields like healthcare. Now, I've seen its application in healthcare.
Mm-hmm.
In drug discovery, I do expect it to be more. It's just beginning. The
Mm-hmm.
reason I see expected because see academicians tend to fight a lot, but that's not necessarily the case with people who have billions at stake. Because
Right.
in academia, it's mostly just ego at stake. In industry, people can make billions or billions of dollars. So people actually make peace when necessary, and when they fight smartly. What has happened is one of the biggest pharma giants have come together for multiple projects. They've
Right.
even interacted, come up with agreements with top universities like MIT in drug discovery.
Mm-hmm.
So now with federated learning, I think it can even be the next step. But it's a beginning days, so we have to see how next 2 years pan out.
Right. So that is quite mind blowing. You also talked about how the data we are playing with is mostly Eurocentric. So we can train a model across Indian, African, and European hospitals without any raw data ever leaving its source.
Absolutely, that's possible. And I think, see, in India, it is possible from top down.
Mm-hmm.
In bottoms up, having been professor in India, I see huge inertia, desire
Right.
to hide one's weakness. Right?
Mm-hmm.
People will defend their collaborator first data. I actually think government, irrespective of the political party, I'm not trying to place within India, BJP or Congress, I think the will at the top,
Mm-hmm.
even with bureaucracy, is a lot more than will at the bottoms up to share data to make something happen. And there is a lot of will
Right.
for people of India to see it being developed. So I think
Mm-hmm.
if there is a top-down thing, we can have this thing. Top-down thing, I know some African countries it can happen. I'm not sure of all of them. So,
Mm-hmm.
but it'll depend on how. See, it's very difficult to predict how a social thing unfolds because it's a social phenomena. Whether directors of institute or directors of agencies agree,
Mm-hmm.
or whether the minister agrees, who's pushing it. Usually, you need champions or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
but there is a very strong case for it, and there is a strong case for open information also about success and failure, which I think if at all developing countries, the global south has to develop the way China has, and
Mm-hmm.
openness is required, which is currently missing. I think
Right.
the future is going to be federated. The future is going to be more transparent. And let's
Mm-hmm.
see.
Right, sir. So let's shift gear for a second. What do you think is your biggest concern about AI in this field? Is it bias, misuse, over dependence, or all of the above?
I would say all of the above.
Mm-hmm.
Bias is huge, right? Because we
Right.
have existing healthcare disparities. Over dependence is another trap, right?
Mm-hmm.
People have this thing just like in they tend to use AI as gospel. Models
Mm-hmm.
can be wrong, and then there is excess, right?
Right.
Um, Wealthy countries can afford AI enhanced drug discovery and newer tools. And the current model in India is smaller groups keep doing what they've been doing.
Mm-hmm.
irrespective of if their patents have any meaning or not.
Mm-hmm.
90% to 99% patents are academic patents just to promote career.
Mm-hmm.
So the desire to get out of silos and do something translational is very little.
Mm-hmm.
So you have bias. It's a huge problem. Models being wrong. People, a wealthy country being able to afford everything. So integration has both the problems, right?
Right.
AI has gospel, not enough expertise.
Mm-hmm.
Second problem is basically wealthy countries can afford and integrate things. In developing countries, people's desire to integrate is a lot lower.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
So that is quite sobering as a science enthusiast. I think as students, we sometimes get swept away by the potential and forget the responsibilities. So for someone like me, just starting out, how do you recommend I get involved? Should I focus more on coding or biology?
That's a good question. I think become bilingual, code and
Mm-hmm.
shell sort of have a strong foundation in biology, which is essential, but
Mm-hmm.
also pick up Python, explore machine learning basics, start using bioinformatics platforms, right? There
Right.
are great MOCs out there, and don't forget communication. Science doesn't move forward in isolation.
Hmm. Right, sir. You are quite preaching for the choir. And speaking of working forward, do you ever take on students or interns at your labs?
Yeah, so we do take a lot of people. We run sort of continuous programs in bioinformatics. We mostly
Mm-hmm.
do sort of work from a model from around the world. We have people working with us from US, UK, heavily from India. We have
Mm-hmm.
people even from Pakistan that people found it surprising that if you're currently based in India, people bring up old rivalries. I think in arts and science, those rivalries should go away. So we
Mm-hmm.
get people from all over working on various bioinformatics projects.
Right.
So, anyway, yeah.
So, sir, before we wrap up, looking forward, what is the future of AI in infectious disease research over the next decade? What do you think?
One is, yeah, so if you play it right, I would say the future is about precision, prevention, and participation.
Mm-hmm.
AI drugs can be more tailored to one's genetics, exact strain of the pathogen, and the population it's infecting.
Mm-hmm.
Prevention is a very important thing. AI-based systems can detect outbreaks before they happen.
Mm-hmm.
Wastewater monitoring, genomics, and even social media signals. We actually did quite a bit on social media signals. I delivered a talk, and somehow one government agency ended up having exactly copy paste of the talk without even altering a single line. That was very uncomfortable, but that's India, right? So people taking the work and sharing it. But this
Mm-hmm.
is something we worked a lot and we haven't put it out too much. Then there's participation, open innovation, patients, clinicians, and scientists co-creating solutions through citizen
Mm-hmm.
science and transformation, transparent platforms. So
Mm-hmm.
I started doing citizen science way back in 2007 before it was cool or even heard of much. And I've been continuing to do it and it remains as a big strength. We're
Mm-hmm.
very transparent to a fault. And I think this even model, this may sound blasphemous. I think the whole model of publishing in discrete quanta is a broken
Right.
model. If you actually upload your results, keep
Mm-hmm.
updating your interpretation of current data, keep
Mm-hmm.
saying, oh, I found this, which contradicts this. So
Mm-hmm.
open science model rather than fixed publication model and
Mm-hmm.
AI-based evaluation of your work. Instead of silly metric that I publish 100 papers with, which you can publish in one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or
Right.
I publish in Journal of Neuroscience instead of Nature where your paper is more impactful. Or
Mm-hmm.
people are so accustomed to things in their field that they don't look outside. Science follows trends. It's like fashion. It's like Bollywood. Most people don't realize it. See,
Mm-hmm.
science can be objective, but the practice of science is done by scientists who are humans.
Mm-hmm.
No better, no worse than cricketers. No better, no worse than Shah Rukh Khan, Kareena Kapoor. No better,
Mm-hmm.
no worse than your politicians. Scientists
Mm-hmm.
cheat. Scientists lie. Scientists can be stupid. Scientists can be
Mm-hmm.
right in certain things.
Mm-hmm.
Practice of science is very, very human thing, right? And
Right.
it's wrought with politics. It's wrought with trends. So
Mm-hmm.
AI integration of all the science is the future.
Mm-hmm.
Now that may sound like a huge vision. Let's see if that happens or not, but at least within the confines of industry, which is now more of my thing. I'm actually again taking a professor position. I just recently joined. Liner
Mm-hmm.
Center for Human Resilience. But my main focus remains industry. In industry, at the end of the day, you have to make money.
Mm-hmm.
So open
Right.
source, how open source can go along with making money is also a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
So in a perfect world, you may want to have everything open source. Open source is done by academia at
Mm-hmm.
all, if at all. I'm not saying it's done. Some, like 5-10% of academia is willing to share things, and those who are willing to share things are underpaid. So brighter minds are going to industry.
Mm-hmm.
The brightest minds are opening their own companies, right?
Right.
Brightest and the most young ones.
Mm-hmm.
So industries may be willing to share certain things, and that's where federated learning becomes important because they're not willing to share their unique data access.
Right.
Because it's a, if I share everything with, let's say, a competitor in epilepsy, I
Mm-hmm.
could be making $1 billion company, and it may be worth zero if I share everything.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a whole dynamics, and I would not go into sort of that dynamics, game theory, and complexity, but that all plays into it, and I often think about it. But
Right.
that's for us. Some other day we can talk about it.
Right. So you have put it out so beautifully, and I also believe that future is not just about faster cures; it's also about democratizing health innovation. And if we want to move further in science, mutual collaboration will be the key. So thank you so much for this conversation, Dr. Sukant. I learned more in this conversation than what I usually do in an entire course.
Thank you very much. I'm really humbled by your praise and keep asking bold questions. I'm sure you'll make an incredibly great scientist one day. You're already on the way.
Right. Thank you so much, sir. And to all our
Thank you.
listeners, thank you for tuning in. If you like this episode, share it, follow the podcast, and drop your questions for future guests. Until next time, stay curious, stay kind. That's all.